Good morning, everyone. The van is an absolute mess. I'm still dealing with the fiasco from the Max Air fan. I've been sent the wrong PC board for it twice. So I have a dead board, two good boards that just don't work for whatever reason, and I'm waiting on the third board. So the back of the van is a mess. I don't have a vent fan running, and I'm in final prep for a trip out to the Outer Banks, which is in about 10 days, 2 weeks, something like that. So super excited to get to the beach, but I have a lot of things to do and I'm working a lot. And so I wanted to do a quick video about something that occurred last weekend when I was in Topsail Island. If you have been watching this channel since the beginning, if you have, thank you. If you haven't, hey, hit like, hit subscribe. You know that the channel started pre-COVID when I was teaching every weekend. And just about every video started with me building a cooler and filling coolers and prepping stuff for classes. I teach kayaking primarily, along with other things, in Central North Carolina. And in the summers when I'm teaching, it can be brutally hot. I am fanatical about fluids and generally feed my students frozen Gatorade throughout the day to keep them hydrated and keep them cool, and it tastes good. And I would occasionally, actually most times, drink a Gatorade. I would buy the little bottles, drink a Gatorade or two throughout the day, and I never gave it much thought. I used it because, or I drank it because it was convenient, because I had it for students, but I always pack water, and I'm really good about packing water. I tend to not, when given the first choice, go to rehydration supplements. We'll use that term. I generally carry them, but I generally don't drink them. And so an interesting thing occurred this weekend. Also, if you are not aware, I'm a wilderness medicine educator. I work for the National Outdoor Leadership School teaching wilderness first aid courses, and I used to be a paramedic, and before that I was an EMT. And so I have a good, strong background in emergency medicine. And so the important lesson here is don't be your own doctor. So a while ago, I had a video about acute mountain sickness, which I experienced traveling to Colorado. This is a good example of why you shouldn't be your own medical educator. So at the end of at the beginning of the paddle last weekend, the Sunday morning paddle, I started to not feel great. I felt just like breakfast was sitting really heavy in my belly. And I made some jokes about it, and I was a little belchy and such, but paddled fine, felt great, kept hydrated with this water bottle. In the hour and a half paddle, drank about 1 liter of water, straight water. But at the end of the paddle, I started to feel worse. I started to feel a little nauseous, started to feel like I might throw up. Just felt a little bit weak. So I thought about it and was thinking dehydration, so I kept pumping water and continued to not feel as good. So I went back to our house, I took a rest, I started sort of prepping to cook dinner. It was my turn to cook dinner. And I did a quick Google search to make sure that I was sort of diagnosing myself correctly. And I had decided that it was probably a mild case of heat exhaustion. Even though it wasn't that hot, I tend, as I get older, to not do well in the heat. And so I had some of the signs and symptoms. I didn't have the heavy sweating. I wasn't cold, pale, clammy. My pulse rate was elevated, but just about everything will elevate a heart rate. I was nauseous and felt like I might vomit. I had occasional stomach cramps. I wasn't dizzy. I didn't have a headache. I wasn't fainting. Those are the signs and symptoms of heat exhaustion. So I sort of kept giving myself fluids and trying to figure out what was going on. And then about 2 hours later, when I still wasn't feeling great, I did another Google search. And this time I think I hit WebMD instead of CDC. And they added something else that I wasn't aware of. And that is that salt depletion can cause severe stomach cramps. And I thought about it and realized I am actually just out of salt. That's what's going on. And so salt depletion is sort of, or heat exhaustion with salt depletion is sort of a secondary type of heat exhaustion. So technically speaking, I had hyponatremia, which is really pretty rare, and I had a pretty mild case of it, but it's hyponatremia anytime that your sodium level is lower than normal, and I think I was just below normal. So the signs and symptoms of hyponatremia, which I have to stress is really pretty rare, is nausea and vomiting, headache, confusion, loss of energy, drowsiness, fatigue, restlessness, irritability, muscle weakness, spasms, cramps, seizures, coma, and then you can die. I had a couple of these things, but I have to stress, super, super, super minor case of hyponatremia. And I just realized that I wasn't taking in enough salt. I had plenty of water, almost too much water. Actually, before paddling, frequently I will drink a liter of water just to sort of get the ball rolling, to get ahead of the curve. And then I drank another liter while I was paddling, and I was only after about an hour and a half. So I have to stress, hyponatremia is really rare, but I'm pretty sure that's what was going on. So I asked my wife to run down to the van I was cooking and grab me a package of Noon tablets, and added them to a 16-ounce glass of water, and drank half of it and immediately felt better. I finished a second glass about an hour later, woke up the next morning, felt pretty much fine. And so great example of it's not great to be your own doctor. I should have caught on earlier that my problem was salt. I should have eaten something salty. I should have been snacking on food. At Knowles, we say that lunch is the meal that starts right after breakfast and ends just before dinner. I didn't do that. It wasn't that hot, which is a good sort of way to understand that the problem was not really heat exhaustion. It was too little salt. So that's a quick little video. Things to be thinking about while you're paddling. Yes, it's important to hydrate, but also make sure your salt levels are where they need to be. I will, from now on, probably be alternating straight water with something like Noon or Scratch Labs or something like that, to sort of keep the ball rolling. So that's where we are. This is important stuff. Keep track of your physical state while you're paddling or doing anything in the outdoors. Take care of your body, feed the machine, make sure everything is working the way that it's supposed to. I'll see you outside.